If you want to learn functional programming, and this is the Wikipedia description of that. But to get into the roots and gist of this different style of programming, we have to go back to 1930, and we have to recognize that some fellow mathematicians and pioneers have approached the problem of software engineering in a more formal way, and we all know that that way is mathematics. And just like an algebraic function, fx equals x squared, and if you give x to 4, then the answer is 16. So there is a mapping of the input parameter 4 to the result 16. So that is a direct and deterministic map from input to the value. So if you say f and you gave it a 5, then it will result to 25. So 4 is to 16, then 5 is to 25, and the function fx equals x squared. And this mapping from parameter to value is deterministic, such that if you gave f to 4 equals 16 today, then it will always be like that forever. It will never change the result when the input stays the same. If it is 4, then the result will always be 16. And as we can see in today's programming, C, C++, Java, this principle is not guaranteed to be true. For example, in a C function or C++, Java, Python, whatever, you gave it an input of 4 and it will give 16, but then you are allowed to store a global variable such that when you call again the function giving the same parameter 4, this time it will no longer be 16 but maybe 17 or something else, because there is now a memory or a global state or a global variable that keeps track of the computation and affects the function, the execution of the function. You will admit that this is the case when you do programming and you are maintaining state between function calls, and it affects the function calls. In C++ object oriented, this state is what is the member variables are for. Now, in mathematics, fx equals x squared, there's no such state. An equation in mathematics, like quadratic equation, does not have a global variable. It does not remember what was executed before or yesterday. It will always be flat right now. The value of the resulting value only depends on the input. That is very obvious to think, but it's not as obvious as it seems when it comes to actual programming. And so this style of programming, which is mirrored to the behavior of mathematics, is called functional programming, and more formally termed as lambda calculus, but it's not going to the scary term, it's just functional programming. But I will warn you, this is a very different style of programming. At the onset, it may sound simple, but it is not simple as it seems. It has been known through various personal experiences that Experienced C++ programmers feel dizzy when trying to learn functional programming. It's very it, it takes time to transition. And okay, enough of this talk, and let us go to an example programming language that have this particular style of programming, and that language is Nix or Nix. Nix is a programming language Nix is a programming language, and it is also a functional programming language. The purpose of this, why this programming language is created, is to manage different files in a Linux computer. And this is called, or this responsibility of managing files in a computer, in a Linux system, is called package management. Every files in a Linux system belongs to a package. Like you have the Firefox, that belongs to the Firefox package. But more to it, it does not come as a single file. It has accompanying other files that goes with it, like the library and all the configuration settings, and all of this set of files that forms the Firefox web browser is packed inside one package that groups them together. So if we uninstall Firefox, this set of files, how many are there? Could be 100 or 20 of them, or including the folders that were created during the installation, will be removed. This is called the uninstallation of the package. In today's Linux ecosystem, the top two package management is using Ubuntu, which is the dpkg, and in Red Hat, which is the RPM. But the intention is the same. It is just to manage the various files that belongs to a package. Well, there is a particular Linux distribution called the Nexus, that has a different style of packaging, and it uses a programming language to do the packaging. And that programming language is Nix. And these are the syntax. It has primitives like true and false, as we know in C and C++. It has a Boolean operator and, or, and conjunction. It has also an if-else construct to decide things. But in contrast to the if-else that we know in C, the if-else in Nix returns a value. If you just realize the if-else in C and C++ does not return a value unless it is inside a function. If-else alone cannot return a value. It can only be used to decide or switch the code execution. However, in Nix, if-else can return a value as well as execute code. There are integers and floats. There is a string, and this is how we concatenate string in Nix. Okay, you can do this, you can browse this page on your own, but I will choose an example. functional, I now have here a Nix REPL to demonstrate some of the primitives. We can add two numbers, 9. But to get to the point, Nix is a language that's intended to manipulate or maintain files in the hard disk. Therefore, if we do 2 divided by 3, we get this output. The reason here is that 2/3 is a path. If written in this way, it is a path. The folders and subfolders. In order to divide 2 by 3, you have to put a space. And now this is a division. .667, 2 divided by 3. Okay, and now you have to realize, you begin to understand now that more than just a programming, Nix is about maintaining a set of dependencies and files in the hard disk. Okay, so that is what the purpose why this language was created. And this maintenance of the files can be done programmatically. Now this is a drastic departure of how RPKM and DPKJ handles file package management. Nix is the only package management that handles files in a hard disk in a programmatic way, as it expressions in a programming language. Now let's go to the more subtle parts, the important points to whet your appetite. Let's say let us create a function that accepts one parameter and increments it. The way to do that is to assign the function into a variable f, and the function accepts one parameter, let's say x, and then it increments that parameter by 1. Then, up to this point, we just created a function that accepts one parameter and increments the parameter by 1. We have not yet called the function. Now, to test this function, f, and give it a parameter of 5. And by the way, there is no open parenthesis here. It's just separated by space. The function name is f and 5 is a parameter. And if I press enter, it gives me 6. Because the function, we define that the function in that matter, we increment. The 6, f 7, or 9, 10. Functions in Nix are anonymous, just like in JavaScript. That is what we have to assign it to f. We also can create functions anonymously and execute right away. For example, this time I will use y, then y plus 10. Now this is the function that we declare right now. Okay, only right now. It is not being assigned to a variable. So this is anonymous function. We declare right now, and we pass it the variable of 13. Enter. It gives 23. But when the function is lost and erased, we can no longer call it again because we just declared in place there and pass it with a parameter of 13, and hence you can now begin to see that it is important to assign an anonymous function to a variable in order to call it again, like an 8, because we assign it to a variable f. But there are also uses of anonymous functions. Uh, that is why it is not a useless construct to have an anonymous function, because there are uses of this way of function declaration and call. This is it for now, and to summarize, we entered into a new world, the ancient but at the same time new paradigm of programming, which we call as functional programming. Its roots is very ancient in 1930, and this particular programming is mirrored or rooted from the disciplines in mathematics. In order to combine mathematical functions in algebra, simplify them, and reasons about functions, it has to behave in that way, in a functional way, and hence the functional programming mimics that behavior in order to become more composable, more aggregatable, and lesser side effects. Secondly, the Nix programming language is used in the Nix OS Linux distribution. However, you can also install the Nix package management in an Ubuntu. I'm just saying that as there is a Linux distribution out there that has Nix built in as the package management. You can also use Nix OS in Ubuntu and Red Hat. When that happens, your Ubuntu will have two packaging systems. The native one from the Ubuntu and the Nix packaging system which you install as an add-on. It might be difficult to imagine this, that everything that you install in Nix is contained in the one folder /Nix/store. If you remove this folder and everything is uninstalled, clean. So all Nix packages are written under the Nix store folder. It is not cluttering your etc or /bin file system in Ubuntu. Okay, so everything is safe in Nix. That's all for now, and I understand this is an alien concept, but I have already explained my point that the seek for functional behavior of programming roots back to the mathematical discipline being more functional as in algebra. Thank you.